So okay, there were over 20 people registered, so I was hoping there would be a lot more here so I could get some input from what other libraries have done for grants, but they'll probably be signing in anytime now. So grants, there's a lot of things you can do with grants. There's a lot of reasons to get grants, and I firmly believe that anybody should be able to get grants if you just apply yourself and try. Try to get my screen to advance. There we go. Okay, so I'm Tammi Thiem. I'm the director of the Three Rivers Library System. I am not any kind of an expert grant writer or professional grant writer. What I know is what I have done from experience, and that is from a small rural library perspective. So I've written tons of grants, and a lot were successful, some were not. And it's funny, that's one of the things I kind of miss about working in a small public library is looking for grants and seeing where it would fit for me. Kind of a weirdo that way, but I thought it was kind of a fun experience when it would all come together. And libraries are really good at sharing, so that's always good. So why is it important to write grants? You can have specific programs, or maybe there's repairs, maybe there's events. A lot of small libraries have limited budgets, and there's a lot of companies and individuals that want to help libraries, so that helps them too because they're able to give grant money. So my experience with grant writing was I started at the Genoa Public Library, a small town under 1,000 people. And the budget when I started was around 16,000 a year. And it was really a kind of a sad, quiet library, probably like stepping back into the 70s is how I always felt when I went in there. And no programs, one of the hush-hush libraries. So from 2013 to 2019, I wrote about 40 different grants, and they totaled around $35,000. And when I figured it up, it was like a 94% success rate. So that was pretty exciting. So one of them I started with was like a makerspace. We didn't have kids that came in. So I think one of the first grants I got was for like a Kreutz Bennett and maybe a Youth Services for Excellence. And I tried to get things that would be engaging for kids and build the critical thinking and logical thinking skills and would be fun. So it was board games and a lot of STEAM, stream if you want to add reading into it, toddler concept kits, Legos, toys. And I did these grants a few different times just to keep things fresh because, you know, as well as I do, that when even adult, not just kids, when you have something that you see the same thing every day, it kind of gets stagnant. But if you add something new, they're always looking to see what's new. And building repairs. It was a storefront building and the mortar was deteriorating and we didn't want the front of the building to fall off. So we got an estimate, it was going to be around $10,000. So we got a $5,000 Kreutz Bennett grant to repair. And bless their hearts, some community members got together and they did a silent auction raffle soup supper. And of the 5,000 we needed, we ended up getting 13,000. And one individual, in addition to that, donated $5,000. So that meant we had extra money in our coffers. So applied for another grant, a $10,000 grant to get new shelves, new paint, new carpet. Which this all happened after I left then, that the grant money was available. So that was exciting to get rid of that 1970s feel from inside the library. And some other grants that were used, I think it was a library improvement grant through the Nebraska Library Commission, got a ceiling mounted projector and screen, and got a Lego wall and flannel board wall. but that screen really was exciting to get to use for like virtual field trips. Add a little innovation and technology into the library. Library programs. One summer we did a summer adventure club with reluctant readers. So those kids that won't sit down and read a book from front to finish, we ended up getting 24 books that were things you could read in snippets. And we kind of passed the books around in groups so that they would spend 15 minutes reading. Even if it wasn't a book, it got them reading and learning. And then we would incorporate that with other activities. For example, Transcontinental Railroad. They read books on Transcontinental Railroad, and then we had a virtual field trip with Durham Museum, which was free, so that was awesome. And another one was like inventions. So they read about different inventions, and then they used copper wire and a battery and magnet to make a twirly thing, made their own little invention. Another one we did was a coding club. We used grant money to buy some Chromebooks, cases, a mouse to go with each one, and then we used code.org to do the activities. And that was pretty exciting because you have a successful program when you do 8 weeks. And there was on the second week, one kid missed, and he was so mad at himself that he forgot, but otherwise there was full attendance every time. And that's pretty exciting. I don't know that had ever happened to me before. So I really hit on something the kids wanted. I applied for the Association of Rural and Small Libraries conference. I am super proud of this because there were 110 people applied and they only had 4 scholarships available. And I got one of them where it paid my way to go to St. George, Utah. And yes, that is Richard Paul Evans. So that was a huge life-changing event. Okay, there are grants that I did not get. There was an Institution of Electrical and Electronic Engineers grant. And I remember I worked super hard. I was so excited to get all these science kits. I invested a lot of time in writing it, probably more than I normally would. And I didn't get it. And when I checked, all of the winners were from the Chicago area. Ezra Jack Keats, and that too, I was so excited, came up with this great idea for a collage project. It's a nationwide grant, so there's a lot of competition for those. I learned a lot with writing the grants. I didn't get it, and I should have tried again. I never did, but I encourage you to try for it. That would be fun. And Dollar General, that one, they give out money every year. The need is up here. The amount of funding is down here. So everybody kind of has to take their turns, but they're usually very generous. Okay, my big screw up is, okay, I guess the first grant I got was from Walmart for $1,000. This is so cool. I asked for money, they gave it to me. Win, 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 right? Yeah, it was like on the 3rd page, I was supposed to go through with this publication or publicity so that they could take a picture and what did you use it for? I didn't know any of that. I didn't read it thoroughly. Shame on me. I was on the naughty list, and I did not even know that I did it wrong until I applied the next year and found out I was not eligible. So it was a huge learning experience for me. So it was not a complete failure, although it is still pretty embarrassing to admit that I did not follow through, did not read the fine print, or it wasn't even fine print. I just didn't read it thoroughly. I should have known there was more to it than they would just hand me money, but again, live and learn. So where do you learn about grants? And I have to admit, I come from a public library background. So that is where I've gotten my experience and knowledge of any grants, but I need to open my scope to include university libraries and their needs and wants, and school libraries or special libraries or institutional libraries. There's a lot of need out there and I need to learn more about it. So, but from a public library perspective, state libraries and systems offer grants. For example, the Three Rivers Library System, we offer like scholarships that would help pay for conferences or continuing education, or even a Humanities Nebraska. If a small library wants to do a program and that $50 is a little tight, the Three Rivers Library System will help with that. And of course, Nebraska Library Commission offers lots of grants. And a lot of theirs go through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And then there's all kinds of information available, even if you just Google it sometimes. Nebraska Library Association, they often share grant information. And of course, there's ALA, ARSL, and so on. Some local opportunities, the Kreutz-Bennett, Margaret Russell, Preferred Sands, those are very local for me, Cornhusker Public Power, ethanol plant. But those kind of give you a scope that there may be a gas company or a utility company that offer grants. Maybe there's an ethanol plant or a meatpacking plant that would help. And don't overlook the very basic things like coffee shops, gas stations, restaurants, because sometimes that really helps with summer reading prizes for a free ice cream cone or something like that. Every little bit helps and everything should be appreciated. Okay, the national opportunities, there's like Walmart, Dollar General, and like the IEEE, and you never know where you're going to hear about it. My oldest son's a computer engineer. One of his coworkers said, hey, isn't your mom a librarian? She should apply for this IEEE grant. That's where I heard about that, is just him in his workplace. Ezra Jack Keats, USDA, and like I said, the other ALA, PLA, ARSL, Mountain Plains Library System. There's all kinds of library associations that are there to help offer grants. And I did put a few links here. The Nebraska Library Commission, Krista Porter, which everyone who knows Krista knows she wears numerous hats. She's kind of compiled a list of grant opportunities that are found on this. And like I said, she's got a lot of hats, so I don't know how much she is able to keep up on this, but I think it's a pretty thorough list. There's librarygrants.blogspot.com, tlcdelivers.com/library grants. The Pilcrow Foundation, it used to be the Libri Foundation. They offer books. And then of course, Google, because you never know, something may come up in a Google search or a DuckDuckGo search. And another thing to remember is that a lot of these are offered yearly. So it's nice to know what their schedules are, because like I said, the Dollar General grant, I applied every year, but I did not get it every year. But I try to be aware of what their schedule is. And I thought, well, if this was an off year, maybe next year will be better. And it usually did turn out that way. So it doesn't hurt to try to apply each year. Okay, so when you write a grant, like I said, I learned the hard way, you need to follow directions. And I really truly think that letting your passion show, if you're excited about what you're doing, I think that'll show in your writing. If you don't have the passion, that may reflect also and may come across as not so enthusiastic about getting the funds. And I am kind of a grammar fanatic. Hopefully I haven't made any goose ups in here, but spelling, grammar, sentence structure, punctuation. If you have a lot of competition, you may as well try and make it your very best to set you above any competition. And I always wonder, does the idea come first or does the grant opportunity come first? And either way works. But it seems like librarians always have ideas in the back of their minds or on the back burner, or something they've heard that they're kind of let bloom. Usually I had the idea first and then I'd come across a grant. Yes, I could use those funds to make that happen. But there are a couple times like the IEEE, they were very specific. And so I developed the idea after I heard of the grant. And same with Ezra Jack Keats, they're pretty specific what they want you to do. And either way works, I think, but again, usually there's ideas and there's the need there before you even see the grant. And of course, knowing your community makes a big difference, because you want to make a program or something that's really relevant to what you do and what your communities need. If it's not a good fit, you're probably not as apt to get the funds because it would show that it's not a good fit. But also, why try for the funds if it's not going to work for you? Okay, so again, for the grant application, you probably want your demographics. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. You want the demographics so that you know what works the best. And you want to demonstrate your need and the intended results or goals. Okay, so for like when I did the makerspace items, I really knew what I wanted. I wanted to get kids to come in the library. I wanted to really stimulate their thinking and add to their education process. And I think if keywords I think are important. For example, back then, STEM, STEAM, critical thinking, logical thinking. And these things the trends kind of change. I think right now, diversity, equity, those are probably some key things just based on the news and so on now. I think anything with education and learning skills are probably always going to be trends. But it's kind of nice to know what is trending. So it's good to listen to other librarians to know what some of the forward-thinking librarians are doing and follow their examples, or be one of the forward-thinking yourselves, of course, too. Okay, some of the goals, you want to really articulate what you want to happen. And I always thought this was very tricky because they want to know quantitative and they want to know qualitative. And it's hard to determine what you want to happen, but it's not always enough for them to hear, well, I want more kids to come to the library. Okay, define exactly what you want. So an example would be to increase your program attendance by 5%. You want to make it a realistic goal, because if I want 10 times as many kids to come in, well, that may not be realistic. And it may be self-defeating to try too unrealistic of goals. Qualitative goals. Okay, for the example of my reluctant readers, I wanted kids to read, not necessarily read a whole book, but I want kids to spend 15 minutes each week reading when they come to my program. Encouraging attendees to use the new items to build on their critical thinking skills. A lot of times grants want to know that community support is encouraged, or they want matching funds, or they want matching cash or in kind. For example, when I put up our projector, I had help that volunteered their time putting it up and was able to use that as in kind on part of that. So your final report, that's important because, yeah, if I were giving someone money, I would really want to hear the results. That's the exciting part, is, did it work? Were you able to do what you wanted? Did you reach your goals? So it's kind of nice if you can elaborate and tell them, yes, this money really made a difference. It increased the attendance. That, yes, I think the children really learned what I was wanting them to learn. And even extra stuff like, oh, I never even foresaw that they did teamwork while they were doing this. And make sure you read their requirements. Again, I lived and learned. I did not follow through, because you don't want to miss future opportunities. Do not be afraid to write grants, because you want to make a difference. Your library is worth it. And there are communities, there's individuals and companies that want to give out these funds. They want to benefit the communities and they want to enrich lives. So you think about it, that what's the worst that can happen? Yeah, you didn't get it this time, but you usually learn something new. Your writing skills evolve. You've added to your idea, or you've spelled out your idea and really have a concrete idea of how to put it forth. So you always learn something from the process. And I guess I always made myself feel better that there is steep competition, and there are a lot of worthy projects out there, that it's not bad that other people get it sometimes too. Showing your passion, I really truly think showing your passion is a big part of it. if they know you're enthusiastic, that's contagious. It really is. Make sure your goals are meaningful and relevant. And again, remember your library does deserve the best that you can give. Your communities do deserve it. If you don't get the grant, you've gained experience. And sometimes you can, all this idea can go to a different grant that may be a fit. Or maybe you can try a different idea with the same grant a different time. You're always building your skills, you're always building your education. So you keep your eyes and ears open. There's always grant ideas everywhere. Listen to other librarians, they're great at sharing ideas. And you never know where you're going to find one. Okay, and follow through. If you get a grant, it's nice to send a thank you card. They might remember this next time, probably especially the local people. If they give out money to 10 different entities and the library is the one that sends a thank you card and follows through, they're going to remember that. So that goes for your grants, scholarships, donations, memorials, volunteers, anybody that has helped your library is going to make a difference. I mean, this is one story that I remember. There was an elderly lady. She spent time in her yard, picked up bags and bags of these huge, beautiful pine cones, brought them to the library and said, I always hear about the stuff you do at your library. I thought maybe you could use these. So we did. We used them in a really cheap, easy program, peanut butter birdseed. But I had the kids make out a card for her and they all signed it and we gave her a couple of pictures. And it's so funny. Everybody she saw, she raved about how wonderful the library was. So she became a huge advocate. I mean, just because of a thank you card that we just kind of added that as part of the program, but it really made a huge difference to her. And hopefully people who heard her talk about how great the library was, hopefully that impacted them to realize, hey, the library is a pretty cool place. Okay, so like I said, there were over 20 people registered. So I was hoping to get all this feedback about different experiences that you guys have had and different ideas for grants, different opportunities you've had. So I'm going to turn it over to everybody and see if there's any of you who have been able to do anything that made a difference. Do I have any input? No takers? Has anybody applied for grants, whether you've gotten them or not?
Tammy, I'll go ahead and start.
Thank you.
I haven't really gotten grants. I've gotten a few grants, scholarships for when I wanted to go to a convention or something like that. And that was pretty easy. You just have to say why you want to go and what you hope to learn at the convention. That wasn't that hard. The problem I have with grants, the questions I have for you are, the narrative is often hard for me. What do I want to say? Why I want this money? Because mostly what just comes to me is like, well, I need these things. Like, for example, I have two things that I would like to find grants for. One is we're thinking about doing a community garden with seniors, and that's not quite as hard because that involves the community. The other one that I'm struggling with is we have a history room that needs revamped. It needs better display cases and it needs ways that we can protect that history without it all just falling apart. And I don't know what kind of grant that would work for. So that's one thing I'm having a problem with.
Right, and it is hard to find grants that actually fit sometimes, because Dollar General, they're usually for literacy. But you think of your ultimate goal, if you got your history room all organized and straightened up, what would you hope would happen?
Well, we want to put a table in there so that people can use it for a meeting area. And in the past, we have had kids come in to kind of learn a little bit about the local history. So maybe I could put a little bit of that in there.
Right, so quantitative, you would want to increase the use, and you could put a goal of 3% more use or 5% more use. And the results would be, yes, using it to learn something. It would be an educational factor. It would be saving the history of your town, which it should be meaningful for your community. I mean, I think those are totally acceptable reasons for doing it.
Okay, that's a start. Thanks.
It is. In the community garden too, it could be would the people who helped with the garden or people in the community, a food bank or something, be able to use it to help feed the people in town, right? I mean, that's a pretty concrete to fit a need.
Yeah, we don't have a senior citizen center here in town. So we're trying to think of more things to do with the seniors because they, you know, we have a bingo group that gets together and they need a place to come and socialize. And we're hoping that with the community garden, that's another thing that they can do.
Absolutely, and that can be part of it too, because that fills another need. Yeah. See, that's what you just tell me what you're going to do and then write everything down that you say. Sometimes it's easier to say it than to try to formulate it in your head.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm always looking for, okay, what do they want to hear? If I could just know what they want to hear, then I could get that in the grant. That's what kind of stops me sometimes from doing it.
But if you do it and don't get it, you've learned. And sometimes I've never actually asked for feedback, but I've heard that they actually will give feedback of, well, this is why you didn't get it. Like I said, I never actually followed that extra step to figure out why I didn't. And maybe I should have. I could have learned from that experience too.
Well, you found out from good old Walmart, so.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I felt so silly. But
they just wanted a picture.
Yeah, you go in for a publicity. I think they actually have a wall where they put for publicity. I mean, I get it. You're given $1,000. You kind of want to toot
see
your
a
own horn
result.
that, hey, yes, this is a result. I get it. If I was giving money to someone, I would want to know they actually used it and it worked. Dan asked, can individuals libraries apply for IMLS grants, or is that more for the commission or the tribe? It is for libraries. A lot of them that they offer are for public libraries, but some are for, what kind of library are you from, Dan?
South Sioux Public Library.
Yeah, they are usually for public libraries.
Yeah, we weren't sure about that because I looked at, well, I forget which one of the IMLS grants, and everything that was received from Nebraska was either one of the tribes or the commission. So we weren't sure about that.
And
oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Oh, I've got a couple suggestions for the senior garden, the community garden. Check with your county extension because our local county extension has done extensive work with community gardens, and there may be a group in place that you can kind of cooperate with and get a start, that way.
If I'm remembering correctly, isn't South Sioux City give out like 10,000 pounds worth of food from a
Yes.
community garden?
Yes, that's through an organization called Voices for Food, which is um, works with the University of Nebraska Extension. So, yeah, they are a very active group. I'm their secretary and stuff, so I try to be at most of the meetings and stuff. But it's um, yeah, they do a very good job.
Well, that's awesome input. Yeah, I really believe too that anytime you can partner with someone, those who are giving money, it shows them that you're really serious and it shows that you have support. And I think those things matter too. And there are lots of things coming up now. I mean, obviously the ARPA funds, but the Youth Services for Excellence, they have a lot more money allotted this year than they normally do. And for this year only, there's no matching funds required. And that's the same with the library improvement grant, which is mostly for technology, but they have a lot more money and no match required this year. I noticed that ALA has the Libraries Transforming Communities. They're doing their third round. So that's an exciting, and you know, Kathy, that might be a good fit for the community garden. And that's through ALA.
We've got that grant too this year, and we're doing community conversations, and that's really helped us to develop more ideas. A couple of weeks ago, I met with a small group of senior adults at the YMCA, and we had money for the grant to do lunch and everything, but it gave us a ton of ideas of questions and things that seniors are thinking about. And I'll be doing another one next week with the local Methodist Church to meet with some of their seniors. But we're doing it also with teens and other adult groups and that. So that's a very good grant to get into.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Yeah. I know there's several just in our system have gotten it the first two rounds, and so many creative ideas. Librarians are so amazing. And that's one thing I'll throw out there too, that if you need ideas, not ideas for the grant, but yeah, if you just want someone to talk to make it more clear, sometimes just talking to someone helps streamline what your focus is. And if you, before you send it in, if you want to send it to me, I'll be happy to give it a once over and give my views. Not that I'm a pro or anything, but you know, I could just, someone who can step back and kind of read it and double check that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and just the clarity to make sure, you know, if I can understand what your goals are, chances are whoever is getting the grants can too. Just the clarity sometimes I think is a big difference too. So yeah, I'll throw it out there for any. I'd be happy to double check.
You can also contact, a lot of times in the grant paperwork, it'll say who, say if they can, if they have somebody who will read your grant over for you before you submit, and that's helpful.
Right, because that's probably someone on the team
Yep.
who actually knows what their focus is. Yeah, if they have the grants out there, they want to give the money away and they want to give it to wherever the best fit would be.
Is there any kind of place to look for, like, this grant's coming up in January, or this one is in the summer? Because it seems like sometimes I miss out on the deadlines. I just wondered if there was a good place to look for that.
Well, like I said, Krista's got that list on the Nebraska Library Commission page, and I'll send out the slides that has the link. I don't know how much time she has to keep it up to date. And the thing is, there's local ones, like in my community, Cornhusker Public Power, I think they offer it 4 times a year, your eligible ones. I always just marked it on my calendar every year because that was for my individual library. Yeah, it's hard to keep tally on all of them because they are all different. A lot come up in the fall though.
Okay, thanks.
So Dan, would you tell us more about your libraries transforming communities? Did you write the grant yourself?
Cicely, our director, Cicely Douglas, and I worked on sections of it, and I usually kind of help co-author and co-search for grants and things. And the whole idea was to have our focus was on what barriers people have to living the life they want to live, and just using some springboard questions, we're able to find out what things, in my case, what things senior adults and older adults are concerned with, and with the teens and the younger adult groups, what they're going with. But that was, I don't think that was a very difficult one, if I remember right, to get. They were very accommodating and that. So, and we've been able to get out and have conversations with all sorts of partnering groups and stuff. So it's a good way to build bridges in the community, because it's allowed us to reach out to groups that serve the Hispanic community, the East African community, as well as just local groups that work with teens. We're going to do a thing with high school group once school gets going again and stuff. So we just use that to reach out to a lot of service organizations and make a lot more connections.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm curious, Dan, what did the seniors say? The seniors in general, if you want to share.
Sure. Oh no, that's this was a very lively group, and they were concerned with everything from internet privacy and scams, which was our 2 first questions. One of the things I ask is, what do your children warn you against? Because younger adults know that the seniors struggle with things. So that was kind of a springboard. But they had questions about everything from election laws. And so the first part of next year, we're going to try to have something with like our city clerk as far as what the actual law in Nebraska is as far as voting, mail-in ballots and things like that, because that's been such a controversy. And that, so and early voting and things. We've had oh goodness, we've had the big one that surprised me was there was a lot of interest in understanding the difference between medical marijuana and general legalization, and knowing the difference between the two. So it's just a very broad number of things. And then we got to share about services that we offer. And one of the things, the group that I had, the last group that I met with was interested in is seeing our library get involved with doing passports. because the post office net, it usually takes a long time. It's usually a long line and a slow process. So that gave us a whole extra service to look into providing. So it was everything from things that we could have programs on to services that we could look to providing. And so it was a very profitable group. I really enjoyed them.
Thank you. A lot of information there.
That was kind of an unexpected benefit of even getting the grant, right? You
Yes.
kind of reached more than you expected even.
Definitely. I mean, we knew we were going to have some discussions, but that was our thing, is we have a very large community, but it's surprising with the amount of things we do, with the number of people we don't reach. And so the question is, well, what would people want to do? Something else that was really profitable for us, Tuesday night, a couple of our workers went out to National Night Out, which the city does. I don't know if the smaller towns do it as much, but we got to contact 254 people just in one event, handing out brochures about the library, doing library cards and things. So, and that was surprising how many people we were able to connect with. And that's one of our focuses, is getting more, not expecting people to come to us so much as to be getting out in the community and doing things with the community. So that's what kind of the process we're going through.
Yeah, something that I never really mentioned, but you know, to be an accredited library, you have to do the strategic plan or community needs assessment. And that really makes you focus on the demographics of your community and what you need. Sometimes that can really spark an idea for a grant. And sometimes that's what grows. And if you find the fit for a grant, sometimes it does all come for full circle that way too.
Sure, that's what we try to do, is every time there's a need, we just look to see how we can fill it. And we're a long way from where we need to be, but just getting out there a little bit at a time is all you can do.
I don't know if you can successfully fulfill every need 100%. But if you can be there to help and do what you can,
Well,
it makes a difference.
And that's the whole thing. Our thing with our whole staff is we don't know everything, but we want to be there to point you to, viable information that you can use.
So Davenport Public Library in Davenport, Nebraska, small town, less than 300 people. The only grant that we've actually received was the Pill Cow grant for small libraries for children's books, which we received this last year. I guess a couple of questions come to mind. One is that since we don't have a lot of large businesses in the area, and I've written off to several larger corporations, but when we don't hear back from them, what's reasonable to reach back out to see if they're even considering it? Because sometimes it's a long time, you don't know a grand funding cycle for them. If you're asking for something even in kind from them, what if you haven't heard back, what's appropriate for a follow-up?
So are they companies that actually offer grants, or are you reaching out for support?
Reaching out for some support. So they don't have a formalized grant process?
Yeah, I guess it's a fine line. You want to follow through, but you don't want to be a nag. But for one thing, are you sure you're contacting the right person within the company it could be that they just kind of put the email to the side because they don't handle that. And so it just got lost. So it doesn't hurt to follow through.
Yeah, these
to
are
make sure.
formal letter requests.
Okay.
So not, of course, in the post office being such as it is, know when something, if something even was delivered, at least in our experience.
Right. But I think it would be acceptable to follow through and make sure that A, they got it, and B, that it got to the right department of the company. And yeah, I would think if they aren't willing to help, that they would take the time to at least acknowledge that they got it and apologies, we don't do that at this time or something.
Right.
I would think they would want to follow through just as goodwill,
Yeah, in terms of local support, we have, I mean, it's been massive when we've asked. It's been massive local support. We actually did our first fundraising in probably 25 years for our library, and we had expressed the need, and we've raised twice as much money as we asked for.
Congratulations.
That's good.
Which makes me wonder when we ask next year what that reaction's going to be, but because we need to ask every year for what we're not funded. We're actually a nonprofit that was organized by the Women's Club back in the early 1900s. And we still are. We receive some village funding, but it still doesn't meet the need.
So you're legally established as a library and you have 5 board members?
Yeah, well, we have 8.
8, okay.
Now, yeah.
So you will be getting the ARPA funds?
Yeah, we will be receiving
help.
the formula grant, and and I've been reaching out, so I have a background in fundraising. I've been reaching out and looking at some of the other grants that are available to us. You did all the work with getting the SAM numbers. That, good Lord, that was a nightmare.
Is your library accredited?
No, it is not. It hasn't been since the 90s, I guess. But we're working on that.
Yeah, I mean, that opens a few more doors.
Yeah, of course, our librarian, we have to bring her kicking and screaming into the accreditation process. But
right, a lot of grants are only available to accredited libraries, right. So that would make a difference too.
Yeah, the board will soon be accredited.
But yeah, it's a lot of work to get accredited, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? I guess we didn't even really touch on fundraising. That's all kinds of creative ways that librarians do that too. Does anybody have any regular fundraising ideas, things that they do? I know the library I was at did a once a year bake sale on Good Friday, and that was always fun and always generated several $100s. And of course, the one time that I mentioned it, we got well over double what we had asked for. That was soup supper raffle and silent auction, but that was kind of a one-time thing. Anybody else? Your libraries do fundraising ever, really?
I needed my new color copier and I couldn't get money from my foundation or anything. So I had a local lady that donated a quilt and I sold raffle tickets and I raised enough for the color copier and some of the ink. So, and she's donated a quilt another time to help raise for a project that I was working on. So that helped.
It does. Good for you and good for her. That's nice. It's always fun to hear about the community support. Any other comments or questions?
Well, I guess I do have one more question. It's not totally off topic, but kind of sort of. You know, our library patronage really is the very young and the very old. And I guess the challenge that I want to see us tackle is how do we reach that middle group? And I, you know, I'm kind of at a loss as to one, why they're not utilizing the library. What needs have anybody found a need, a compelling need that will drive people to the library in that middle age group? It from the 20s to the 50s even?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I think that's something all of us struggle with, and that's why we try to get out and do things in the community, because I'm not sure why that why it's so tough, because you can get people coming in as long as their kids are little, and once the kids get to 6th, 7th, 8th grade and the parents don't have to bring them anymore, then you don't see the parents until they're older. So
I think everyone is just so busy, but I think what you said about going out into the community probably really hits on it. If you have city festivals for, you know, like a regular annual event, try to be part of that, just to be known, I guess.
yeah, if you could get your library as like a polling place or something, that way at least you would have everybody coming in the door, whether they would use your service, at least gets people so they have to focus on that building and that organization right there.
And awareness.
Yeah.
It's still surprising this day and age how many people don't know what libraries offer.
That's very true. When I first started at the library here, we're a town of 400, Jack. So we're like you are. And everybody knows everybody and all that kind of deal. So we have a program here where in the community, they have a Christmas thing and they have Christmas open house. And some people go around and tour some of the fancier houses all decorated for Christmas. So I asked, can I be one of those places? Can the library be on the tour? And I got my library board together and we decorated the library for Christmas. I had a tree in every room, so that was like 6 trees or more, and we did different themes, and it just got the town to come into the library. That I figured that was a start, because some people said, wow, I haven't been in here. I didn't know it was like this. And it's a start. And a lot of it is like Tammy said, they're all so busy leading their lives and taking their kids to the sports events that they don't make time for the library. And maybe what we need to do is like what Dan did. We need to get some of them together and say, okay, what can we do for you? What are you interested in?
Mhm.
And that to me is a whole new concept, because I'm like, no, the library is just here and everybody just comes, right? I know, I guess it doesn't work that
Yeah.
way anymore.
Right, and it's easy enough to do a survey of the people who come in the library, but you already know what they want and they already know what you offer. But to reach those that don't come in, that's more of a challenge.
Mhm.
Does your village have any kind of like a newsletter or something that goes out with your electric bills or gas bills or something? Because you could use something like that to see if you could get a little spot in there to tell people what's going on.
Does
Or a
everybody
little,
come to the post office to get the mail?
Yeah, we do post things at the post office.
Mhm.
There is a public space there. But we created a Facebook page for the library, and we frequently share that with the community page of Facebook for the Davenport community, which has, about 700 people that are, adjusted to that. But yeah, people have subscribed to our Facebook page, so they get notices every time we post something. One thing we are trying right now, we started this week, and for the Tuesday nights in August, we're providing checkers and chess instruction and play. We were hoping that that would drive people in with different ages in Tuesday evenings. At night we're not open, which I think is also another issue. If we have working families that are, and the library is not open at a time that is convenient for people, we've already put a roadblock up for them using the library. The hope being at the end that they might informally organize and have a regular night that they can meet in our meeting room and organize as a club. Mixed results. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a good idea though.
but
Mhm.
it's our first week, so we'll see.
Right. And don't get discouraged, because sometimes it takes time for word to get out too. Okay, well, it looks like it's a few minutes till 11. Any last words or thoughts? I hope everybody got something out of this. Like I said, I'm kind of a weirdo, but writing grants is something that I kind of miss. I always kind of thought that was a fun challenge, and especially if I actually got it and it all came together like it was supposed to.
I guess one last thing, when we brought the board back in, how many of you are utilizing the Dolly Parton Imagination Library?
Through the library itself?
Yeah. None of you? Is it available in your county or your city? We started it and funded it through our library for the kids from birth to 5. And it costs about $25 a year per participant for it. We raised the money very easily right off the bat to do that for an entire year. And then we're putting it in a regular budget. And I've encouraged a couple of our area libraries, once they heard that we were doing that, they each have gone through the application. It's kind of a pain in the behind to do their thing, because you have to get the status from the post office that you can do nonprofit mail, but everything else beyond that is pretty easy to do. Or at
It's
least
not
to
a
find somebody in the community that's capable of doing it. Because our thought was, if we start the kids right off the bat, the parents reading to their children from birth till 5, that will carry over. That should help carry over.
I belong to a extension group, and we started doing that with books for newborns and stuff, and we would put the information in there, but in our area it is not available. So I've had a couple of people that have family that lives somewhere else and it's available there. So they do it through that address. So they can't get it in our area.
Yeah, they needed actually a program champion in that, in your zip code.
Like a United Way or so on, right?
Yeah, United Fund in a lot of Nebraska counties, the United Fund actually does it. Or if you have a United Fund, you could approach them with the idea of doing it. Or if you have a community foundation, they easily can do it as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll do some looking into it and see what's available for some of the counties in Nebraska. Because I know I had done a United for Library, and I think I got grant funding for that too. They gave books for babies where you get a board book and a bib and all kinds of information about the value of reading. So I got like 25 kits. Every time someone had a baby, you'd hand them out. And I always thought that was kind of a fun way to try to at least draw the kids or new parents in, I guess. So that's a great idea. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. A lot of great ideas, a lot of inspiration, so many creative people. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.